All right. Good evening, everyone. It's evening for me in South Africa. Hello to everyone. I'm Rubida Mabuya. You can call me Ru as well. I am a language researcher, a linguist by training in South Africa. I work for the South African Center for Digital Language Resources. And my topic I'll be speaking about, okay, let me just minimize this. Yeah, I'll be talking about digitizing humanities in South Africa, looking at computational linguistics resources, training, and community building. So I'll be basically speaking from a perspective of what the work that we do at SADiLaR, the center that I work for the country. So the overview of the presentation, we will look at the structure of SADiLaR, our strategies, challenges to computational research in South Africa, as well as the current state of digital humanities in South Africa. So in South Africa, we have 11 official languages that are recognized by the Constitution, and they are as follows on the screen. For the Nguni languages, we have isiNdebele, Siswati, isiXhosa, and isiZulu. And for the Sotho languages, we have Setswana, Sesotho, Saleboa, as well as Sesotho, and we have 4 other languages that are not grouped, and they are Afrikaans, Xitsonga, Tshivenda, and English. And these languages are all constitutionally mandated, and they are to be treated equally in the country. But we find that predominantly language is a language that is used in media and governance, and therefore all the other languages are not necessarily receiving an equal status in the country as was intended. And so the South African Center for Digital Language Resources was established in 2016, and it was funded by the Departments of Science and Innovation, a national body. It is part of the South African Research Infrastructure Roadmap, and its responsibility or its role is to develop all the 11 official languages of South Africa to be equal and to be languages of teaching and learning, as well as be languages that are used in digital formats. And the aim of this is to enable and enhance research in language technology, to develop, manage, and distribute the digital language resources, as well as to build research capacity in the digital humanities space. Okay. And so So our structure is a multi-party entity that is to as well as a hub of a network of link nodes that comprises of different institutions within the country, your universities, as well as the research infrastructures, where we are working hand in hand because we are a national infrastructure. So we don't only focus on a specific university, but we attach ourselves to all the 26 universities that are in the country. And all of these nodes specialize in different, they have specific specialization that they are focusing on, which can be digitization or speech to text department, as well as your text technologies, and also the child language development node that specializes in child language. And then we have, or our mandate is to focus, or we run 2 programs, which is the digitization program, which solely focuses on the digitization of text or even archiving, which assists in unlocking collections, building blocks, and innovation. And then we also have our Digital Humanities program, which focuses on building computational capacity in the humanities and social sciences. Our strategies, we do a broad national enablement, which we mostly focuses on interaction via awareness session, as well as workshops, where we go and facilitate workshops at the different institutions that request workshops from us, as well as internal exposure for our researchers back in SADiLaR, where we focus on enabling, reskilling, and as well as collaboration initiatives with other scholars, so that we can be able to transfer those skills to the country at large when we get these enabling opportunities. So the challenges to computational research in South Africa that we're faced with is that we have a scarcity of digital language resources, mainly for the indigenous languages, the Nguni languages, the Sotho-Tswana languages, as well as the two languages that I mentioned, which was Xitsonga and Tshivenda. Those those languages are at a lack of resources, even with the data in itself. You find that there isn't enough data to train these resources on. So we are currently at that stage where we are trying to develop all the languages so that they reach at least the same status as English and Afrikaans, because English and Afrikaans are deemed as better resourced languages in the country. So we also have a limited expertise in the usage of these computational linguistics tools, as well as expertise in itself for people to train linguists that are primarily the speakers of the 9 indigenous languages of the country. So we do have people that are specialized in computational linguistics or even in computer science, but you find that they are mostly focusing on English and Afrikaans, because those languages are considered as Germanic languages. So their structure is not as complicated as the other 9 indigenous languages, which afford or which take the agglutinative structure when it is written down in text. And so our way of involving the community in trying to ensure that these languages are also getting the status, or they're also being developed to reach that particular level that we are hoping to achieve, we require involvement of various language communities. We get assistance from them in ensuring that whatever resources that they may have, or whatever that they feel they need training on or skills to be transferred on, we are there to assist those language communities. We also work with existing language resources, and we check what is available and how these can be sourced. I'm currently working on a project of digitizing some of the works of the late Professor Masis. But when we find at the museum, some of the materials that he wrote are actually handwritten, and they're stored in boxes. So that wealth of knowledge for the language that I'm particularly interested or working on, you find that if a researcher was to actually want to do research on that scholar, there aren't enough sources. There isn't enough data for us to actually do research on our languages to advance it to become a language of teaching and learning, as well as a language that reaches the same status as English, because that's where we normally have a benchmark when we're looking at our indigenous languages in South Africa. We mostly just compare it with South African English and how far it has actually been developed, and how far it has also reached the status of being a language of teaching and learning, as well as a media of media and governance in the country. We also draw comparison to Afrikaans, which was also a language that was not that old in the country as well. It was a language that was created in South Africa, and already it has a wealth of data that is available, as well as resources. So that is what we are here for at the center. We are trying to also get our indigenous languages to become languages of teaching and learning, as well as languages that are accessible and findable also, and reusable online when we are wanting to do research on them, especially the language communities that are under-resourced. So for training, for example, we get communities or linguists or language communities that come to us and request for training, and we are able to assist them. We either get experts, outsource them if we do not have the capacity within SADiLaR, but then most of the time we strive that our own researchers internally are the ones who actually go and conduct or facilitate these workshops that are requested from by the communities. And when I say researchers, I mean that for each and every language that is spoken in South Africa, or at least the 11 official languages, there is a researcher that is responsible for the development and to build a community of practice, so that that language is able to be developed and also is able to be advanced. And we have a limited community of HLTs or DH researchers with the required skills. As I mentioned earlier on, that for our indigenous languages, there are a very limited number of people who are trained to work with our African languages or the South African indigenous languages in this context. So SADiLaR creates awareness, and it offers training opportunities to various scholars in South Africa, and researchers are encouraged to attend local and international workshops to be able to get skills so that they can transfer them back to the language communities. Researchers receive training in the different tools, and they are required to be experts in at least 2 tools that are available in our repository, mainly your spell checkers, your machine translation tools that we're working on, the morphological analyzers, and so forth, corpus tools as well. And then we also run various projects at different institutions that are funded by us. We just completed or concluded a project that was focusing on the preservation of a language that has been spoken by a minority of a community of speakers in South Africa that is not even part of the official languages. And this language, I think, is one of the first languages that were actually spoken within the Southern African region, which is the Khoisan or the Nama language. It is just launched its first dictionary last year in October, and only now it's actually about to reach a status, or it is only now that it's actually about to get the official stamp of it becoming one of the official languages, which will be the 12th language of the South African languages. Even that in itself says a lot, to say that one of the oldest languages within the region was actually not part of the official languages that are offered in the country in itself. And so the current state of digital humanities in South Africa, we have the Digital Humanities Association of Southern Africa, which was established in 2016. Its role is to enhance the understanding and participation in digital humanities in South Africa, and to develop DH scholarship across the Southern African region. As I mentioned, that our DH community is quite small, but we are really trying to get growth up there with this community. And also we are trying to ensure that we are also in the know of what's happening within this community at large. And then the tools that are available actually require people to know how to use them. And so the trainings that we're offering, and also the workshops that we're offering, enable the language communities to be able to use the tools that we have available. And then there are also some multidisciplinary projects that are run in the different institutions between the different language communities that are available. And then what we also do beyond the academic scope is that we are currently in the era of the Decade of Indigenous Languages, where we're encouraging or foster building digital capacity and understanding the broader community needs that we have in the different language communities that we have in the country. And other areas of engagement is that we are trying to also get our languages represented in the Wikipedia or Wikimedia space. I think one of the official languages has zero representation in Wikipedia, which is isiNdebele. So we are also trying to ensure that it also gets a buy-in in the Wikipedia space so that we are able to have visibility, as well as that language community can have their language documented for research purposes and for just preservation purposes as well. And then we also create open or crowdsource projects where participants can actively take part in the transcription, reflection, and the creation of meaning within the language and within the community of that language. And then lastly, one of the projects or the ways that get the community to be involved is we have this program, which is the Escalator program, which is meant to build computational capacity in humanities and social sciences, where the capacity development and community development program, which encourages digital humanities scholars to be involved, and they are able to know what's happening. We usually have what we call the DH Ignite events, and these are regional events which happen in the different regions within Southern Africa. We invite academic scholars for the different regions, for every institution that is represented by that region. We get them together to ensure that we build a community of practice where they share ideas on the work that they're currently engaged in, so that we know that at least in this region, if a researcher is looking for a particular a data set or a language repository, or even a resource, we know who to direct them to. So that is what we are trying to do in getting the digital humanities being visible, being acknowledged, and also being known within the South African space. And with that, I would like to thank you.
Thank you so much. We have some questions in the chat. So give me one second. Let me just stop the. Actually, for this one, I'll keep the recording until someone jumps in. One of the questions is, what would you do with a language that is falling out of use generation by generation? Do you try to revive it to be used as a language of learning, or just preserve as much as you can before it's gone? And have you encountered this in your work?
Yes, as an example, the language that I mentioned, where the dictionary was only launched last year in October, one of the Khoisan normal language, we only have one remaining speaker that's left. And we, with her help and her aid, we were actually able to document the remains of what we have of the language. So also with the community that we work with for the minority of the language, it's one of the first languages that was spoken in the community. It's a mixture of Nguni languages. As I mentioned, that there are different groups between the indigenous South African languages. We also were able to actually preserve that, so that it also gets the status of not just a language that died, that people know about and it died, like frizzled out. So we're trying to get these languages documented so that even if maybe there isn't any other speaker because they're not considered as the official languages of the country, but at least having the history and the cultural understanding, and also just knowing about languages that were spoken in that community or in the country, also just enables us to say, at least we've done something to preserve languages that are spoken within the communities in our country.
And how much of this government-funded work can be used for Christian ministry and missions purposes?
So yes, because we are government funded, we cannot say that we can't share resources. So all our resources are openly available on the SADiLaR website. If you want to have a look at any language resource that you want to look at, or even the data sets that have been donated to us, everyone is free to actually go in there and make use of them. Yes, others, you find that maybe people would just want to store them in our repository because that's what we offer as well. Maybe those authors in itself will say, maybe I do not give you permission because of the licensing. But everything that we did as an infrastructure that was funded by us is freely available in our repo. I think your sound is not, yeah.
Have you encountered languages that are suffering, but you were able to revitalize it? And how does that take place?
So it takes a lot. It takes the help of the community and at large that comes into play, because we can't do it without the communities. We usually get we have like an open call for proposals if people want to do that kind of work. The two projects that we just completed last year, it was work that began back in 2016, but was only completed last year. And then with the help of the community and the remaining speakers and the help of computational people, computer sciences, NLPs, the practitioners, as well as linguists in play, we are able to actually document and actually have, like, for example, a resource, a dictionary. That's a starting point, having to know, okay, what a meaning of a word is, how maybe I can use a specific word in context. And by that, we are now also going to have an online version of that dictionary, not just the hard copy version of the dictionary, but also an online version, so that we can also use it for developing computational tools with that resource.
Great. Are there population statistics available about the number of people who speak these languages who have access to the internet?
I'm not sure, but I can find it in one of the government data. I can find it.
Okay. And do you have contact info that you would like to share with the attendees? If so, if you'd like to put your email or website or whatever you'd like to share. There's no pressure to share, but if you'd like to, feel free to.
Yeah, sure. I'll drop that in the chat, no problem.
Great. And do you have a Bible in each of these languages?
Sorry?
Do you have a Bible in each of these languages?
Yes, we do have Bibles in these languages that I've mentioned. I specialize in isiZulu, that's my mother tongue, and I do research on it. I know that in 2021 they've just completed a new translation of the isiZulu Bible, because the first translation that we had was not really accurate. But I know that in 2021 a new version of the Bible was actually published or released. From the South African Bible Society.
Great. Thanks. So we have a comment that says, thanks for your work. Each language has intrinsic value to offer the world, and it's great to see them valued.
Thank you.
Great. We have a couple more minutes for questions and comments. If anyone else would like to either put it into the chat if you don't want to be seen, or if you don't mind being in the recording, then feel free to unmute and speak up. And if there's no further questions, maybe while we're in this time, if you want to put your contact info, and then JV, if you'd like to get your presentation ready, and we can switch over when you're ready if there's no more questions. So JV, if when you have your slides available, if you wouldn't mind sharing it, and then let me just stop this recording and start a new recording.